Hey everybody, Tim Corpus here, composer and sound designer. We're back with the ultimate guide to Touch OSC. We're going to take a look at a special MIDI template in Reaper. So I use MIDI pretty much every day for everything from video games to film scores to mock-ups for live performance pieces. And it's really important to get those velocities right. And it's a great thing to have a MIDI controller if you have one of those. But if you're using Touch OSC, there's a lot of things we can do with that to control the MIDI. Things we want to control include like the expression or the velocity. So we're going to build a template to make that much easier for us on a day-to-day basis. So let's jump into the editor where we'll make the template and then we'll sync it all up in Reaper. And I want to note that for a lot of these videos, I'm building these templates on my screens here on my desktop computer, and I'm using the editor on the computer because it's just much easier to work with this, or with really building any template. But anytime I'm actually using it to work with, I'm just playing it off of my iPad. And there's that play button, the triangle in the top right corner, which you can push that once you have your template on your tablet device, and it'll play it. It'll make it so you can use that. It's active. So I'm not using the desktop editor to work with daily. It's really just for building these templates. So we're in the editor, and the first thing we're going to do is build some quantize buttons, because quantizing is a really important thing when you're patching in MIDI. So let's go ahead and make a couple buttons here. And what we're going to do is give them a couple labels. And this is going to be 1/4, so a quarter note. And this one's going to be a 16th note. Perfect. So let's go ahead and make these blue for right now. And great. What we're going to do is take this first button. Let's remove the OSC message because this is all going to be happening in MIDI. And just like we were using last time in the last video, we're going to build everything off of channel 2 because I know it's empty. So this first button here, we'll make that program channel 2 CC1. And then we'll make this 1/16 button. Let's get rid of that OSC message, and this will be number 2 and 2. Perfect. So quantizing, if you're unfamiliar, is the way that we can tell the computer to realign the MIDI notes. So if we're playing things in on the piano and perhaps we make a few mistakes, we're not perfect in time, we push a button and it'll move things over. And this is super helpful. So let's go ahead and add this in Reaper. So here in Reaper, let's pull up our action list. And what we're going to be going to is in section, we want to go to MIDI Editor. And let's find quantize. So you can see I've already got some set here, but that's okay. We can add an additional one. So what we're going to do is 1/4 note. So let's take this, add, and then let's push that first button. You can see that, to CC1, and that's okay. We'll override that. And then right here, we want the 16th note. Let's go ahead and do that, 2, 2, and we're in. Cool, so we have this set. So let's add in an instrument to try this out. And what we're going to do is add in contact. And we're going to work with the Cinesamples piano, Cinepiano. I love this one. It's one of my favorites. Great. So we have this here. Let's just go ahead and add in our own measure. So I'm holding control and I click across, I drag. Let's open this up real quick. And you can see in our piano roll view here, we've got all our measure, right? So we want things to line up on the grid here. So let's go ahead and arm this track. And then I have my Casio Privia already set up, so let's put that there. And let's go ahead and play some parts in. So as we look in here, we can see I didn't totally line up with everything. So let's say we wanted this to be on the quarter note right here, and I missed it. So we're going to go ahead and select this, hit that quarter note button on our iPad, and you can see it moves things over. Same thing's going to happen if we were to select this. Let's zoom in here and let's put ourselves on straight 16th notes. And if we hit that 16th button, everything aligns. Now you'll notice if you have like a arpeggio here, you select all that and you hit 16th notes, some things are going to be aligned. So you just want to be careful of how you're trying to quantize this to your grid. So like I said, quantizing is super useful, especially when I play in parts or I play in drum parts. It's really nice to just be able to fix this, set it to the grid, and then if I want to add some kind of humanity to it, I can make some errors later to make it sound more realistic. All right, let's take a look at two other really helpful buttons for your MIDI template. So let's add two more buttons. Make this here, copy, paste that. And let's make them different colors. So we'll make this kind of a purplish. And let's give them labels for what they're going to do. What we're going to do is add a button to load CC names. So let's just call this load CC names. And you'll see how helpful this is in a second here. And then the second button we want is step. So it's going to enable step sequencing in MIDI. So we can call this step, and then we'll call it just sequence. So we'll take this first box, remove the OSC message because we don't need it, and this will be living on 2, 3. Same thing for this, we'll remove the OSC message. This will be on channel 2, and then CC4. Now let's go into Reaper. So loading in CC names is super useful, especially when working with percussion. So let's add in another instrument. And let's add in another instance of contact. And what we're going to pull is cinesamples, and I want to pull in a tambourine. So we have tambourines here. Let's just go ahead and check this out. We can arm this and set it with our Casio. Control drag here, and we open up a little MIDI section here. It's kind of confusing because I don't ever remember what all of the notes are and where they are loaded. So that's why adding a button to load the CC names really quickly is super helpful, because normally you'd have to go File and then Note CC names, Load Note Names, and then choose. And you can see I've got a lot, but we're going to do this a little bit simpler. So let's go to the action list, and then let's go to MIDI Editor, and let's type in load. And you can see right here, load note CC names. And of course, I've already got one listed here, but let's add it anyways, add, and then hit that red button, and we've got it set. Great. So here we are, we're working on this, and of course we know this is tambourine, but let's hit that red button, and it pops open this folder here. And of course, this is located, you set this to whatever you want it to be. This just happens to be where I have all of mine. So let me go into Cine Percussion, and then I will open up tambourines, and you can see all of the listed items, all of the different instruments available. And it's even easier to use if we just do note names. And now you can see we've got the small tambourine side, which would be right here. Then maybe we want a different one, but at least this way we can see them all. This is just so much easier to work with. But before you can import it, you have to make it. So let's open up a folder here. So mine live in this template folder here. And if you open up Cine Percussion, you can see quite a few different ones that I've made. But this is just a really simple text file. So let's just open this real quick to see. And this is all it is. It's opening in Notepad. It's just a text file, and it says, you know, number, MIDI note name map, and it's just got all the numbers, and then you have to type in whatever you want to call each one. So what I did was I played through the instruments and I checked what the manual listed, because sometimes the manual is wrong. So watch out for that. Sometimes the notes that it listed, especially in some of the Cinepercussion ones, I've seen that a few times, the CC note names are wrong. So I'll play through it and double check, and then I will write them in and create this map here, save it, and then I'll be able to load it right up in here in Reaper. It's such a time saver as you're going through and you just want to get like a really specific hit sound or whatever, and you don't have to play through everything, or you don't have to memorize what every percussion instrument sound is and where it is on your keyboard. Especially if you're like me and you're using percussion all the time, it can be impossible to remember where everything is. Great time saver. It'll help you out so much. Loading CC names. I can't say more about it. It's the best. So the next thing we're going to add is that step sequence. Let's go back to our piano real quick. So let's close this and let's turn on our piano. So we're going to add in another section here, and I'm going to play on my piano, and you can see that notes are being called, but nothing is sticking. If I recorded this stuff in, it would work, but that's not what we want to do. We want to just play it in. So we can turn on step sequence. We could just click that right here, and you can see I can just play in, and then let's move over there. Or if you wanted to figure out your chords and you play a chord and then you want to move over, and let's say you want to make this a quarter note and you play that in. This is an easy way to do that. So let's open our action list here. Let's head over to MIDI Editor and let's type in step. And you can see that right there, MIDI inputs as step input mode. And of course I've already set it, but let's add it anyways right now. Let's go add, then hit that purple button. Here it is, channel 2, CC4, and now we got it. And if we turn it on, you can see it glows, turn it off. Oh, but it's not working. What's going on? Why isn't it staying? We got to go back to the editor to fix this. So our issue is that in the button here, we have it on any. Let's turn this to rise, and then let's try it that way. So now we're back in our MIDI editor, hit that button and it's on, hit that button and it's off. When we do it this way, it's only sending that message when the button does push, fall, or rise when you let up, as opposed to both times. So these are super helpful. Let's add in our next one, which is going to be moving around in the MIDI editor. So let's add 2 more buttons, and those are going to be arrows. So let's add a button. And we are going to turn this from a rectangle into a triangle. Make that a little bit bigger. Let's copy, paste that. And with this bottom one, let's take this and turn it from north to south, so it's pointing down. Perfect. And then let's give this area a label. And this is going to be octave. And I'm going to set this whole thing up here. It's like a sky blue. Perfect. So let's go ahead and take our top arrow, remove the OSC message, and we're going to be living on CC. I think we're on 5 now. And then this bottom one, again, let's remove the OSC message. Channel 2, CC6. All right, so we'll go back to Reaper and connect it. So if we were to open up this little section here, and let's say we had this one note and we wanted to move it up an octave. We could just drag it up, but we want a button to push it up. So let's go ahead and open our action list. And what we're going to section MIDI editor, and what we want is octave. And you can see, again, I've already got it saved, move notes down and move notes up. So let's go ahead and add, and then we'll hit that top arrow. And then let's select the move down 1 octave, add, hit our down arrow, and we've got it saved. So now as we're working on, let's say this chord's supposed to jump up an octave, we select all of that, and I am right clicking and dragging over to select that, hit that arrow, and there it goes up. Now it did jump 2 octaves, as you can see that. So again, we're going to have to go back to the editor, and we're going to want to change these from any to rise. Same with the bottom. And now let's go back to Reaper to try it. So we're selecting this one that's up 2 octaves. Let's hit that arrow again down, and you can see it's going one at a time. So if you're ever having those issues where you're pushing a button and it's opening and closing really quickly, or it's sending out a duplicate message, that's probably your issue. So try to switch it from any to either rise or fall. Let's look at one other thing. If you were to select this note here and you wanted to automatically move to that note, if you use your arrow keys, you're moving around in the grid. But there's a way to make this easier, and I use something similar to Finale. So let's open the action list again, and let's type in next, and let's make sure we are in the MIDI editor. And what we're looking for is select next note. And what I like to use, you can see I have it already here, and it's the period button. I like the right arrow and the left arrow to be used, so that's what I have set up, and that's just select note. So now, if I'm in here and I select this bottom one, if I hit the period, I go to the right, as you can see, and if I hit the comma or the left caret, it moves it over that way. This is just a really nice, easy way to move through in the MIDI editor when you're trying to work quickly. So the last thing we're going to look at is, let's say you're working in your MIDI editor, but you want to change the velocities. It's nice to have some buttons that are set up automatically. Let's say you know for a fact you want 50 or you want 22, whatever it is, to give a range. Perhaps that's for your pizzicato or your different length shorts on a violin. That can be really helpful. A lot of the times, like specifically with Cinesamples, I think there's like 4 or 5 different gradients. So it's helpful to have those set. But let's add a fader so that you can control it no matter what. So here in the editor, we're going to add quite a few different things. So first, let's start off with a button. And let's make this arrow up. And we'll duplicate that, point it south. Great, and let's move this over to the side here and add in a fader. Make that nice and big. And this is going to be for the velocity. So we'll go ahead and change the name of this to velocity. And what we're going to do is we're going to keep this arrow red. Let's make it a little bit bigger so it's easier to work with. And we're going to make this one green. And similar to the last video where we showed changing the colors of faders, let's take this fader and make it a dark green. Let's come down here, remove this OSC message because we don't need it, but let's add a local message. And what we're going to do with this local message is let's take the eyedropper and we're going to select our fader. As you can see, fader 1 has been selected. And here in target, hit that down arrow, and what we want is property, color, and R. And you could test this out right now on your device. If you move that fader up, it turns orange. So just like in Reaper, as the intensity of the velocity increases, it becomes more red. And if it's lighter, it's a light green. So we're just replicating that in our template. So these buttons here, let's make these a little bit bigger again. What we're going to do with this is they're going to be used to nudge this up and down. So let's go ahead and do that again. We're going to take this fader, and if you're unfamiliar with this, you should rewatch the video where I talk about nudge buttons. And let's name this _1. And here in the top arrow, we're going to go down to the script and add in the script. And that is going up by increment 0.05. And then this down arrow, add that in, and that is going to go negative 0.05. And that script is in the description, so you don't have to go back to the old video to get that. But we can try that out now. If you use your tablet, you push those arrows up, and you can see the fader is increasing and changing color. And if you push it down, it is doing the inverse. Perfect. So now let's give our fader a message. So we're going to go program channel 2, and then let's put this at 7. So here in Reaper, let's set this up. Let's go ahead and Click on measure 2, control and drag in, and we'll set up a little MIDI section here, a little item. And what we need to do is add the action to our fader. So let's pull up our action list and let's head over to MIDI Editor. And what we're looking for is adjust. Right there. And you can see I already have it set. And it's also shift mouse wheel. But let's add another and then move our fader. We can see that's set to 2.7. Okay. And let's go in here, double click, open that up. And let's add some notes. So we have one here, another there, and let's say this one's really low, but we can just select any of them, move our fader, and you can see we can move them all up and down. And it's super simple. If you're working, you just want to quickly adjust it. And let's say we want to go back one, and we learned that our comma button, we can push that, move that one down, hit comma, move that one around. So it's just a really easy way to work in MIDI. And this does work with a group. So you could take, let's make this into a chord here, and we could select them all and adjust them all. Or let's say we want accented 16th notes. So we put one in here. Let's make that accented. This one's lower, a little bit higher and lower. Now we can take this all, and look how quickly we were able to just set that up. So easy to move around in the editor once you have these tools built into your template. So these are just a few of my quick favorites in working with MIDI. There are some other great ones that I'm definitely going to cover in another video, specifically setting your MIDI, the CC that you want it to be using a script in Reaper, and you push a button and you can set it to that exactly. But we'll cover that in the next video. So hopefully you learned something here and you can like this video. Subscribe to the channel because it definitely makes it so I can keep making these videos for you guys and showcasing more and more of Touch OSC. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.